Good. All right. So, Irvin, something about handing out corporate hardware.
Yes, something about people need to think different uh,
You do?
as we get through this pandemic and start looking ahead at life returning quote unquote to normal or the new normal. Be thinking about how laptops are currently being used because you know how there's a number of even us who have given students laptops to
Yeah.
work from home. But you know, maybe a laptop isn't well suited because they're not that great at heat management or you know, tons of dongles and cables and whatnot, and kind of
Oh,
rethinking how that would work for companies using VoIP systems. You know, my right now my office phone is directed to my cell because I'm not there. And I don't plan on being in my office for quite some time, so I'm not going to look at any messages or any calls sent to that.
yeah.
And how our business is going to handle that, having tons of work phones that are basically unused, along with how do you stay connected in, you know, in, for example, this nation where we all don't have equal access to internet, but
Yeah.
all of our employees need access to internet. And you know, right now it's bring your own office. So
Yeah.
how are we thinking about that uh, needs to occur in knowing that we're going to be in this for a while.
Yeah. I think you got a point. I mean, we jumped into this like an emergency, and then because the government just did nothing, it became permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we need to think of it that way and plan our new normal based on these things that,
Yeah.
you know, employees are going to be bringing their offices. How do we defend ourselves and them since they're part of our network?
Yeah. You're right. Raises a lot of issues. All right. And oh, yeah, damn vulnerable bank.
Here we go. We have a new Android application for people interested in Android app exploitation. It's a banking application made specifically to be as vulnerable as possible. So have fun, everyone.
Well, yeah. I wonder if they usually make these, but then they don't have instructions. That's the main thing.
They do not have instructions. However, they do have certain things that you should definitely look into, like look into the sign up process, the login process, my profile interface, you know, how to change the password, etc.
Yeah. Well,
Looks awesome.
yeah, I'm teaching the mobile device hacking class and the web hacking class next semester, and I want to update them both. So I may include this. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
It's a good find.
Yeah. And so this one caught my attention, Immutable Linux, to deal with the fact that updates suck, which they really do. And so the point of this thing is based on OpenSUSE. You put it in a container and it keeps track of everything so that if the update trashes it, you can easily roll back to a working version for the Internet of Things, which I think is a really big issue because updates are really bad. Like Windows updates are terrible, Ubuntu updates are terrible, Mac updates are terrible, to where most people just do what I do and run a couple of years behind because nothing will work otherwise. So anyway, that they call that Immutable Linux. It may be one of the waves of the future.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on Linux, you always have that choice of, do you want to be stable or do you actually want to run the newest software? And now it seems like that's like ultra stable.
Well, yes, and but you'd like to have some opportunity for updates for security flaws. And so
Does that Micro OS run on Pi?
I think they say it does, which is bizarre. You can run containers on Pi. Apparently, they say you can put a container on Pi and run it. That's what they said, which is what you're doing, right, with ESXi or something.
Yeah, I am running that on Pi. I wonder if I can run.
I guess you can run, if you can run ESXi, then you can definitely run containers because containers are much lighter.
Yeah.
So maybe you should throw it on a Pi and see how you like it. Yeah. So a teacher got hacked.
Well, yeah, their email did, and not just a teacher, but the also a school, the email servers for a school that's right next to, these are really close to each other in the Chicago suburbs, like they're sort of in the northwest suburbs in Chicago, around Skokie.
Yep.
And so most likely they're administered by the same IT department. I would guess. That's just conjecture on my part, but I suppose that's the case. And essentially what happened was all these horrible emails got sent out from some hapless math teacher's email account, who obviously didn't do this.
Yeah.
But the best part of the story, as far as I'm concerned, was the way that they're handling it while the police are investigating it. They disabled all the student email accounts.
But not the teacher email.
No, they just disabled all of the student emails.
Because that's what is the problem.
Yeah, exactly, which didn't have anything to do with either issue. So.
This reminds me of a few years back when they caught a teacher saying racist things in class. So they responded by banning students having cell phones so they can't record that stuff anymore.
Right, yeah.
At least that will address the problem in one sense.
Right,
Anyway,
sure.
Well, this is usually what you do when you have a security problem, is shoot the messenger and then call a case, close the case. That's usually.
I'd hope we'd moved on from that, but apparently we've not moved on from that.
We will never move on from that. It's the first reflex of every leader is just shut up. Don't tell me that. There, now that's fixed. And the problem is, I think the problem is if you're the leader, people come to you all day complaining about stuff. And usually that's the right answer. Oh, just stop complaining. That's your reflex response to everything.
Sent me a clip this weekend of Tucker Carlson saying that if you pay too close of attention to what's going on, you could start to think that the U.S. is in bad shape and it's everything's bad here. And I was like, yeah, that's the problem. Not enough willful ignorance. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I think he's on a consistent path. Then you'll be our next president. You better be nice to him. So website can steal your cookies.
Yes, this bug bounty guy was paid $5,000 for this. It affects version 68.9, who's almost at end of life, and I think it's been pushed out to Firefox. But it's an interesting vulnerability nonetheless.
Oh. So this is the same thing we've seen so many times. You can put a link to a funny schema.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can read local files and then send them off to a website, without your participation?
Yep.
Yeah, this kind of stuff keeps happening.
Yeah, it just keeps coming up.
Yep.
Keeps coming up, but this person made $5,000 with this write-up.
Yeah, well, that's
another thing to add for good, clean fun.
Yeah, and this looks it's like the same thing for Chrome, pretty much. Kaitlyn, you're on mute.
Yes, pretty much. Chrome had a recent spat of security vulnerabilities, pretty bad ones. This article doesn't go into exactly what all of them are. I think I have a pretty good idea of what they are. And they're being already exploited by bad guys in the wild.
Of course.
So update your Chrome right away.
Yeah, the memory corruption, I suppose.
Memory corruption. Yeah, there's memory corruptions. There's privilege escalation stuff going on. I don't know. I think I know more than I don't know. I'm not gonna say more. Just update Chrome, people. Okay. It's really important. That's all.
You did it, didn't you?
I had no hand in this.
Uh-huh. Okay.
They all say.
Anyway, so as usual, the politics is bloody madness. So America is nuts. Like 70% of Republicans believe that the president Trump was reelected and the Democrats faked it all, which is really hard to understand. But this is the thing about him. And John Bolton came on and said, oh, they just need Republican leaders to tell them Trump lost. The Republicans aren't that stupid. And I said, dude, they are that stupid. They believe any lie as long as Trump says it. He's got hypnotic power over them. And he also mostly believe there is no coronavirus. So 38% of Americans, a number sufficiently close to Trump's approval rating, are just going to have Thanksgiving dinner anyway. There's no virus, nothing to worry about. And I see them all over San Francisco every time I leave, a bunch of people with no masks partying around. And anyway, this is the COVID response, which is pretty amazing. Hey, not loading fast enough. This map is like amazing, but only if it's going to load.
It's not that amazing, Sam.
Well, it'll be more amazing when it actually loads. But maybe everybody else is admiring it too much. Anyway, then we've got.
It's getting flooded with input. So
That could easily be, yes. Anyway, then we got a ransomware threat against hospitals. That's what we need.
yeah, a widespread credible threat apparently, so apparently these attacks are coming for us. They've been hitting various EU countries. I remember reading a week or two ago about a bunch of mental health patients getting blackmailed in Finland. I believe was related to this. Pretty awful. But one thing that's helpful is on the rare chance that anybody is working at a hospital IT department and their SOC, Mandiant released a list of domains and IPs to add to your block list. So make sure you go and update those. They just released it today, so you can just go ahead. They threw it in a GitHub repo. You can just grab them all and throw those in your block list. A lot of them are pretty innocuous looking, so
Yeah.
I can see why they're very successful.
Yeah, these are like better than usual spam domains.
Yeah. So early warning, be on the lookout, patch your stuff.
Yeah. Good. Clean up some of this. Oh, there we are. That's the map. It's color coded. There really are other colors, but not anymore, not in America. Everything is just uncontrolled spread. Bloody madness.
So everybody stay inside.
Yes, hide. Do not have a party with your friends and family. Like,
the problem is that the herd immunity thing really caught on. I was just talking to some family members today who were like, "Oh, we had to get out and enjoy our window of immunity," and I'm like, "What?" And
yeah.
they're like, "Oh, yeah, you get like 90 days of immunity after you have coronavirus."
Well, that is probably true, I think.
I wouldn't be so sure. I think that was a narrative that got pushed. I mean, a lot of scientists have been saying, there's no immunity conferred after infection with any of the other strains of coronavirus. So
no, there is normal one. You're immune for like 3 to 6 months. And if there's no immunity, then the vaccine won't work. I mean, I hope there's immunity. And I think there is because there's only like 7 confirmed cases of people catching it twice. No, I think they're right about that. If they aren't, then we're screwed. Then the vaccine won't work either.
I hope they're right and I'm wrong, but
that's why I was surprised by Boris in Britain, their leader. He went into isolation, even though he already caught it, which I thought is kind of crazy. But
well, there are a bunch of different strains of it too. So
there are, and there are like 7 known cases of origin getting one strain and then getting another strain. But the chance is really small, I think. Although nothing's that clear yet.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't know how we can assume that because the data we have is so flawed.
I can assume that, but but you could be right.
We could assume anything we want, but
this is America.
Yes.
Anyway, so oh yeah, we talked about this.
We talked about this, and this has Apple's response.
Okay, so what do they say?
They're not keeping track of everything you run. They're checking the developer ID of the app to see if that checks out. They are going to make a way for you to opt out of
that
this
is probably more practical because otherwise it's just trust us. We could see everything you're doing, but we're not looking.
Right.
No, we're not. We're not looking.
Right. So they are making a way. It's not out yet, but it is something that's in the pipeline of you will be able to opt out of this service.
They've done this so many times. The iPhone used to have this thing on it that reported everything you did back to a central repository they didn't tell you about, and then they apologized and took it off. Everybody thinks the cool thing would be to track everything our users are doing.
Yeah.
That's where they start until they get caught.
Yep. So that is the latest where that saga is right now.
Yeah, well, of course, I think everybody else does it too. It's not just Apple.
Just Apple keeps getting caught.
Apple what?
Apple just keeps getting caught.
Well, Windows 10 totally got caught, and they just did nothing about it. They just let everyone yell at them for a while and said, all right, are you done yelling? Now go back to using Windows 10. So SpaceX, oh yeah, I saw this. Good, I'm glad you heard of it. SpaceX launched their stuff.
They launched their stuff. So this was also on Sunday. There was a big launch from, for some reason, this article says it's from Cape Canaveral. They're actually launching from Houston. They launched a rocket into space, a SpaceX rocket. And what was interesting about this is that this was an FAA flight. So this was a private entity that NASA just asked to ride on. So it was more in line with like an airliner than a NASA launch.
Yeah.
And they had some awesome new spacesuits on display, which look fantastic. Everything went to plan. There was a little issue with the pressure inside the cabin initially, but they figured out the issue. There was
a little. That sounds like it could be a big problem.
It could be a big problem, but they figured they found the debris that was causing the issue, and they got off the ground, and everything was good. And there's a toilet on board, and so sometime today, I don't know if they did it already, they're going to be docking with the International Space Station.
So what's awesome about these spacesuits? They look pretty normal.
They just look really cool. And the fingers can operate touchscreens, which is super important.
That's super important. Yeah, otherwise you can't like blog.
Yeah, I know you can't.
Well, that's cool. It does show the privatization of space, which should make it much better.
Yeah.
I remember one of the previous finance officers at NASA was interviewed, and they said, it cost you $1 billion to make a rocket, and these guys said they can do it for $1 million. And he said, that doesn't surprise me at all, because the government is so inefficient. All they do is say you have to make a part in Texas. You have to build a factory in Texas. Oh, you have to build a factory in Iowa. And so we're making everything in each state in the most expensive way possible to stimulate that local economy to get the votes. So he said the private sector should be a lot better. So we'll see.
It'll be cheaper. I don't know if it's going to be the best for the economy, but it will be cheaper, and it will allow for more space exploration.
Yeah. Anyway, that's cool. And so Mudge, the famous hacker from Cult of the Dead Cow, is now hired as the head of Twitter security. So he says he's going to improve Twitter security, and he's going to address misinformation on the platform. So we'll see what comes of that, but he's a real celebrity in the security world. So we might hope to see some intelligent decisions being made. Twitter's certainly being hard on the president. Ever since the election, they've started like actually flagging and blocking his tweets. So I think most everybody figures as soon as January 20 hits, they're just going to cancel Trump's account. They seem to have lost all patience with him. But anyway, we'll see what comes of it all. Maybe some good will come of that.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea to block a former president's account. I mean, regardless. I mean, just because of the importance of who they are. But that's just me.
It's an interesting issue. I mean, the problem is 40% of Americans believe everything he says. And
right.
But if you block him, he'll just do it on Parler, and then it'll all be there. We have a huge problem that we don't even agree on what the truth is anymore. And I haven't heard anybody with a good solution yet. I heard one person today who said the solution is to actually prosecute Trump and punish him. And I said, I don't know, but there's something weird about this information bubble stuff, where people don't even agree on what an authoritative source of news would be anymore. Anyway, then Liz is back. Good. So yeah, the cybersecurity, expect to be fired. Yeah.
Yeah, so this started last week. I almost made it one of my stories on Friday just because it was interesting and outrageous, though definitely on brand and in market. I think that the story continues. He hasn't been fired yet. The boss has defied the orders to fire him and said he just doesn't want to do it yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, it seems like Trump would just fire the boss.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big issue. And of course, everybody's trying to.
I would think so, but at a certain point.
Uh-oh.
Your internet's going crazy, Liz.
I think we lost.
No,
Liz.
no, we've discovered the matrix. We're in the matrix, people.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It's every time I try to load the New York Post website. That's what kicked me off before.
Okay.
It's such a resource hog. So
Yep.
I cannot wait for cable internet, let me tell you.
Mhm.
But I think it's interesting because, you know, how wide of a swath is he going to cut on the way out? And also it's going to be interesting to see how long they last. I find it sort of amusing and horrifying at the same time that the whole reason they want to fire this guy is because he told the truth in that he said, you know, this was actually quite secure, you know, don't believe these outlandish conspiracy theories that are floating around, which is important. We really don't, you know, there are really some issues when you go around intentionally undermining the electoral process. You know, that's a really good way to destabilize a country that's already, you know, in a precarious place. So, you know, I think that the other interesting thing about this is that this guy has been popular on both sides of the aisle. He's been popular with Democrats as well as Republicans, which is a fairly impressive feat in politics, I think. Yet, having the respect of both parties isn't enough to save you from the long arm of the executive branch.
Well, you know, it used to be the case that people were like Fauci. You would stay out of politics and do your job, and then the presidents would come and go, and you weren't on either side. You were just like in charge of some area, like health or the national security or hacking or something, and you didn't have to choose sides.
Yeah, but here we are.
Well, we are. I heard on the Bulwark this morning, they said something pretty amazing about all Trump firing everybody. They said, why is he doing it? They said, some people think it's part of an attempt to take over with a coup, but I don't think it is. It's just like petty Pete, him punishing everybody he sees as true. But the point is, what this is doing is those people are now free to participate on the Biden transition team. Because while they're on the job, they're forbidden by law from cooperating with Biden, but now they're free to join. So it may actually redound to the benefit of the country that all these people that know what's going on can now join Biden's transition team.
Which is also, you know, kind of insane, because that to me shows you don't really care about the country. You're out for serving your own ends.
Well, yes, but Republicans love that. It's a crazy thing. Anyway, I think that's the last one. And I had one other thing I wanted to add that you people saw earlier, only 50 seconds, but I think this is real important so people know how the internet works.
That's, that was billed as a parody of Sesame Street for adults.
Oh, good.
It was hilarious. It was subversive. It was probably the most, at its time, one of the most, you know, progressively, you know, like thinking television shows to be produced, to directly, you know, talk about topics that we're now, as a broader society, starting to get to. So of course it only lasted like 2 seasons. I mean, people.
Yeah, it was way too subversive to stick around. But
Yeah,
I remember Pee-wee's Kids Show for adults. That was pretty good for a while.
Yeah.
But so anyway, now I've made archived all these pages. It occurred to me that we should have titles. You got an idea for a title for this one?
Immutable Linux and more.
Yeah, there we
That's
go.
what I was thinking. Immutable Linux seemed to be the cool thing. All right, good. I'll make it Immutable Linux.
That is the coolest thing.
Okay, good. And I'll add that video. Good, thanks. I'll stop this recording.